Welcome to this week's Desk Side Chat. Joining me this week, I have Austin Bock. Austin, appreciate you jumping in today.
Of course. Good to be here.
This week, we are discussing legacy planning for advisors. A lot of advisors do a very good job of creating a legacy plan for their clients, but in several cases, unfortunately, don't do as good of a job in creating a legacy for themselves in their practice. Austin, you've had some experience in this business. You've seen some of the good and the bad in this industry around how advisors have kind of created a legacy and a succession plan. What are your thoughts on this topic, Austin?
It's a topic that I think leads to a lot of hard feelings with a lot of people. But any way you kind of slice it, it comes back to defining expectations. And that's really threefold, actually. I would say, obviously, for advisors that are looking to transition to retirement themselves or to a different role in the business, to those that are coming in to assist them with that transition. And then on the client side, too, because there's something that this is obviously something that at the end of the day, we serve clients and their expectations around these sort of transitions have to be clear to create continuity for them, because that's how everything works out for everyone. A lot of different ways to slice it. I've worked with a bunch of different advisors in a couple different ways, but it really has come down to the successful relationships being something that the expectations are set up front. There's a clear path moving forward, versus something where it's more just we'll figure it out as we go kind of expectations. As you can imagine, that's something that a lot of people say, let's see how this works, do a trial period. But when that has maybe no end date, that's where things I think can get a little more convoluted and there can be misunderstandings.
Well, and it even, obviously, getting things out in the open, being transparent, that's exceptionally important for all parties. And I like that you included the clients, because often the clients are forgotten in that discussion. And that's certainly an important consideration. But in some cases, you even have these advisors where there's, I don't want to say empty promises, but there's definitely, I think in some cases there's a genuine interest of doing the right things, of taking care of the next generation of advisors, doing the right thing. But then when the time comes, it's, well, we'll do it next year. We'll do it next year. We'll do it next year. And so as important as it is to get that information out, it's important to get those things in writing to the extent that you can.
Definitely. I think it's important for everyone to kind of protect themselves in that. At the same time, too, it needs these things obviously aren't something that should be just slapped together, these sort of agreements, because yes, there is young guys will talk about, okay, maybe this wasn't as fair as I would have liked. I didn't see clear expectations. But conversely, I mean, there is an expectation that needs to be upheld when an advisor is transitioning for that younger advisor or newer advisor. What they're doing. And I've seen a pretty big difference between advisors that maybe hold those younger advisors to a higher standard versus others where their role is something that's more of a licensed assistant. So there's clearly a spectrum there. And I mean, it's something that not every advisor that is part of succession plan has the same skill set. But it's something there too, that I think there's got to be expectations set around that, and then just create a clear framework. Because without that, I mean, it's something that it's great for you to explore this together, but until something's actually concrete, there's just so many opportunities for somebody for a misunderstanding or for some person to just frankly not do what they're supposed to.
And like you said, there's so many different ways that this can go in different situations, different environments. Generally speaking, what are your thoughts around compensation and how that should work during an interim period and on through a succession period?
Yeah, you're hitting the nail right on the head, because the biggest issue with these sort of conversations, I would say 90+% of the time, it comes down to the money. And when you're talking about these things, it's a lot of times you look at people who are, some people are, you know what, you're going to get a salary. It's different if it's an employee role. Those set of expectations are a little different. Things get a little messier when it's something that both advisors would be considered representatives, and you're using something, either certain rep codes for certain splits, and they're different splits based on where business is coming from. That can get messy. I know some people use MDRT, or the $1 Million Roundtable, kind of more old school way of splitting business. And so that's something that setting those expectations and how things are split really is important. But at the same time, sometimes those things do need to be reevaluated, because splitting everything 50-50 might work out in some situations. Other situations, it's not really conducive. And so there's a lot of options. And I would say, generally speaking, it's usually whoever has the book of business, the legacy advisor, that's really setting up how they want to run things. And then it's something that finding a format that that younger, newer advisor can usually plug into, be an asset, have some skin in the game, but at the same time also be supported in a way that they're not. There's just a lot of great opportunities if an advisor is supported enough when they're younger, that they maybe don't have to take on business that an independent young advisor would. That's going to hurt them in the long run, because it's really business they shouldn't be taking on, for example.
And you mentioned clients earlier. What are the best ways, or what do you think is the best way to convey messaging to a client, during again, an interim period on through into succession? How would that work ideally in your mind?
I think some people frame it as, okay, there's a team, you're getting 2 advisors for one. Others are more transparent with I'm getting close to retirement. This is kind of the person that's going to be your go-to. And a lot of time it's something that, as long as those expectations are set up for the client, saying, you know what, this is your new person. Frankly, you're going to get a more robust service model, because I'm working with this many clients. I'm only going to be servicing a handful of clients moving forward. These clients you're going to work with, or something like that. It creates something that really can be a win-win, a 3-way win for both the legacy advisor, the newer advisor, and for clients, where they're getting maybe more touch points, they're getting a little bit more service than they might usually, and just more response. All right, that just maybe isn't sustainable for that legacy advisor because of the size of their book at that time. So that's something too, because a lot of advisors who have been very successful, it isn't a clear one advisor handing things off to another. It might be a ensemble practice where there's a group of advisors. And so sometimes with something like that, it's explaining in the right way to clients, we've been successful thanks to you, but with this scale, there have to be some changes so that we can continue to serve you to the level that you've come to expect. And that's something that I think most clients, if things are presented to them the right way, they get. Naturally, there's some people that have different feelings about that, but generally speaking, in my experience, I've had very few people that have ever said, I don't like this for XYZ. I think it's just something that comes about presenting that, and also being candid when necessary about it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be transparent, forthright. Put it out there, and that's definitely the best way to approach things. And and like you said, not just for one party, but for all parties involved. It's so important.
Yeah, and I mean, you can kind of twist this around a little too. For example, if you took an advisor at XYZ firm, and for whatever reason, they've decided to make the decision to move to another firm. Big decision for them, big decision for their clients. That's another kind of similar situation where it's about communicating with clients in the right way. And if you leave XYZ firm and go to another firm, depending on how the firm's set up, they might say, you know what, we have someone set up who's going to be the successor for all those clients, unless they choose to move along with you. And that really is another kind of, it's just, I would make the comparison just because of the fact that it's another kind of split in the road where clients can say, you know what, I want to experience someone new, or I want to follow that legacy advisor, because I had a relationship with them. Not exactly the same sort of thing, but you do see maybe somebody going independent, somebody moving to a different channel or changing something like that. And it's a good opportunity too, to maybe there's some clients that things aren't a great fit. And as you're doing that transition, it's a good time to maybe explain that to them and say, you know what, we've loved working with you, but candidly, it makes more sense for you to do these things through Schwab by yourself, maybe. So that's a conversation too, that I think some of these transition periods can create that, where it's something that is an opportunity for legacy advisors to almost restructure their books in a way that they're really retaining opportunities that are a good fit for their business model and for that up and coming advisor.
And those are often pretty difficult conversations to have with clients, but again, it goes back to the transparency that, it's like ripping a Band-Aid off. The earlier you do it and the more open and straightforward you can be, the better. But, certainly that in some cases that can be challenging, but, to your point, it can be extremely beneficial, again, for all parties to make that make those changes when necessary to refine that book, so then it becomes that much more valuable for the advisor and the clients. They're getting that much, the clients who stay, they get that much better of an experience going forward.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I would think most people would agree. There's certain people that every one of us serves best because they are the type of clients we work with a lot, the people we specialize in. And candidly, people that don't necessarily fit into that bucket maybe are people that would be a better fit for a different group, or they might be either based on the service model paying more than they need to, getting more than they need to, or on the other side of the spectrum, maybe it's somebody who what they need is a little more robust than what that practice offers. And so sometimes things that just aren't congruent with these sort of transitions, it's a good time to find those, kind of sift through everything. And then it also, by doing that, it's a good way for younger advisors to realize, okay, these are the type of people that I best serve. Yes, there's some people outside of this that I can work with, but I do my best work meeting with people that meet these three categories. And that's how I'm going to be the happiest. That's how I can give them the most value. These other people, you know what? I could work with them. It's great, but maybe I know another advisor who specializes with pharmacists, for example, or something, or some group that has very specific needs that can be met better by that other group or other advisor. So I think it's something that gives people a lot of opportunity to kind of niche down and focus on what they want to. And it's a great way when it's something that a younger advisor isn't just being hand to mouth, as essentially they can pick and choose some of that business and then provide a much better service for clients, versus when they're taking on every single piece of business they can get, every single client they talk to, when a lot of those people, it's just maybe not the best fit for them either. And so I think good teaming can kind of negate that.
Yep, absolutely. And I know you have to run, right? Are we at time here?
Yeah.
So I'm going to continue on here, Austin, and share some additional thoughts. So hopefully you can watch the recording and let us know inside the group any additional thoughts you have. But I really appreciate you jumping in today and participating. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for your time, John.
Yep, absolutely. So one thing that I wanted to get into a little bit, and Austin kind of hit it on the head, is the mentality of abundance, in terms of really having that mentality that you can't serve every single client, right? Really niching down, finding the right clients for you, for your practice, for that new advisor who may be coming in that you're creating that legacy for. And, with that mentality of abundance, there's not every client is going to fit that correct niche, and becoming comfortable with finding other advisors who might be a better fit, and in just referring that business out and collaborating and connecting. That's really a big part of what we are trying to do is in building this community of advisors, is really helping people come together that have that mindset of abundance. One thing that I wanted to do on this topic this week that is a little bit different than what we've done before. I'm going to talk maybe a little bit more than I normally do. I mean, I talk a lot, but a little bit more in this particular context than I normally do. I just want to share a couple stories, and they really represent a big part of what has given me the energy, the motivation to pursue this cause and move. And a lot of this comes down to some really deep, strong personal relationships that I've built with advisors over the years. And in seeing advisors in a spot where they maybe don't have as much of a choice as they could have had when it comes to creating a legacy for their practice. So one story I just wanted to share that comes to mind recently is an advisor called me up. This is a couple weeks ago, and told me that they were considering selling out to one of these large aggregators. And first blush, when the advisor told me that, I'm like, man, you got to be kidding me. You're running a massively successful independent practice. You're absolutely killing it. Seeing pictures of you going out fishing, doing stuff. So I know there's a good work-life balance in there. It's not like the advisor's completely married to the book of business. And I'm like, man, are you really sure you want to do this? I mean, you've got this awesome practice. Why would you want to sell? But after going through back and forth for a good 30, 45 minutes, it's really not a clear-cut decision. And the reason it's not a clear-cut decision is there are so many different things to consider. And certainly one thing that we all know is that, at least right now, book valuations are pretty darn high. And that's also something, I guess, that has motivated me a little bit to do this. Is I think we are starting to get closer to the end. We're certainly closer to the end or the peak than we are to the trough. But regardless of how far we are from that peak, the valuations are higher and they're climbing. And so when he gave me the number that he was being offered, I'm like, oh, okay, that deserves some consideration. But it isn't all just about money. The aggregator would allow him to keep a DBA. He can still run his practice the same way as before. The clients may not even necessarily know the difference. Yes, he becomes an employee of this other firm, but he sets up the legacy for his business. And again, I don't know the right decision in that case or in any case. But the one thing that I wanted to relay in this particular session was this advisor is mid-50s. Mid-50s is considering this potential option. That's important because there's a lot of advisors who long after that point have yet to consider any option. And in an extreme example that I often point to, there's an advisor that I've worked with, much more senior than mid-50s, who's planning on working for another 10 plus years and isn't going to bring in a junior, isn't going to adopt technology or institute planning or really revamp the practice in any capacity, has a buy-sell agreement in place. And what was interesting when we looked into that a little bit, the buy-sell was valuing him out at 1x trailing. And this advisor had done some work in creating some recurring revenue in the practice. And so we talked it through a little bit, and I'm like, you might want to get your practice, practice value. You might want to look back and see if there is a way you can negotiate your buy sell, or, try to, put something in place that might be a little bit stronger. And oh, by the way, maybe consider, moving forward with a potential partnership sooner. And again, that earlier example, this is somebody mid-50s who's at least considering this option. Again, whether it's the right decision or not, who knows? But this other advisor won't even consider it. It's no option is possible. I'm not going to bring in a junior. I'm not going to even investigate the potential of selling out. I'm not going to do these things. And part of that, it isn't just money. Like, he loves what he does. He's running a successful practice and is doing a good job for his clients and enjoying what he's doing. But at the same time, he's not going to be able to do that forever. And going back to Austin's point earlier, clients have to be a consideration in this decision. And what's best for the clients? At some point, that business is going to have to transition. And the easiest, simplest way for it to transition is if the advisor sitting in front of the clients can dictate what that looks like, whether it be a junior that comes in as an independent practice and that advisor owns it every step of the way, or whether it be selling out to a larger enterprise. Nothing wrong with that, but the advisor is making that conscious decision of what's best for the practice, what's best for the clients, and helping to design that transition point for the clients. Again, I just wanted to share that story because I think it's important that there are some advisors, younger advisors, that are putting in place some structures and plans around legacy planning, at least considering options that other advisors will sadly never consider. And what I'm hoping we can do, one of the things I'm hoping we can do with this cause, is try to provide an example for some of these advisors who hopefully can learn the lesson before it's too late, or learn the importance of, again, taking ownership and control of the situation rather than letting it be dictated to them. One more example before I wrap up this personal monologue on this. There's another advisor that I worked with who, into his 70s, had a health condition, and this happens, right, with a lot of advisors in our industry, had a health situation and was basically forced into a sellout. Basically had to sell his practice, or was getting to the point where it was going to be necessary. But because he had waited probably too long, options were not ideal for him. And I sat in his office and he was like tearing up at one point. Just, man, I really, wish we could be doing this a different way. And this is something where it could have been done a lot of different ways. There's so many options that were available, but those things have to be investigated. They have to be vetted out before those circumstances occur, before the health situation happens, before something else happens in an advisor's life, or in the lifespan of the practice. And that's something, again, we're hoping to accomplish with this cause, is provide an example of the benefits of this open collaboration among advisors, this mentality of abundance, and hopefully provide an example where some of these advisors who may be on the path of waiting too long might get a wake-up call sooner rather than later. So that is the topic we will be discussing all week in the GAF Peer Pod. Please join us, and please continue to follow our content on YouTube and LinkedIn. Let us know what we could be talking about that would be most relevant to advisors. This cause is exclusively about advisors. Let us know what we could be doing better. Let us know what we're doing well. And please don't be a stranger. Thank you very much.